Hey everybody, I have a video here for you today. Whatever day this gets uploaded, I'm going to have to do this over a couple days due to time constraints, but we are going to step away from the ancient United States for a video here, and we're going to go talk about probably the most amazing site that I have not talked about yet on my channel. And this is one of the largest pyramid sites in the world, but we're just going to back up here a second. This is the Lambayeque Valley of Peru, and really this place has some of the most amazing remains in it that really not too many people know about, or not too many people know the story. But in this valley, and it was really discovered in the 1890s, 250 pyramids, and pretty much just the remains. And they just look like little hills because they were built out of mud bricks. And this place has experienced El Nino a few times. So the person here, Hans Bruning, he was an engineer and working at a sugarcane plantation or visiting it, and he saw kilos of gold artifacts be melted down. And he really changed his career from an engineer to an archaeologist and an explorer, and explored pretty much this whole valley from the sea to the Andes. And what he came across startled him and really allowed it to be known to the outside world. Now this is the Túcume pyramid site, pretty much the most famous pyramid site in the Lambayeque Valley. And the ruins here at Túcume and around the Lambayeque Valley, a lot of them are associated with the Moche culture. And that is what I'm going to be talking about today. And that comes from about 1800 years ago. This is one of the largest pyramid complexes in the world. And this is what it looks like from overhead. There is a large mountain here in the middle, but all around it, it's surrounded by mud brick pyramids that have really deteriorated. And you can't see it very well here on this view, but let's just do some historical imagery here. Here is a look back. And these are about 5 years old, and you can see these pyramids and what surrounds here a little better. And up in this area, this complex right here, this is over 2,300 feet long, making it the largest adobe structure, I believe, in the world, or at least one of them right here, and that is pretty amazing. But here, looking back, you can get a good look at what this site looks like. And then today, a lot of rainfall, I guess. El Nino has struck a few times in the past few decades, but really these pyramids were unrecognizable to Hans Bruning, who explored this valley in the 1890s, even though he was riding horseback right by these places. He had no idea these were pyramids, and I'll show you why here. Now here's what Túcume looks like, and notice the pyramids in the background here, but rainfall has totally ruined these pyramids. And this is what happens to mud brick pyramids during periods of heavy rainfall. But this is what they look like today, and these were unrecognizable in the 1890s. Here is some more looks. Very impressive site here. This is what it looks like close up. That's what heavy periods of rainfall does to mud brick pyramids. Remember that, because I'm going to talk about that in a second. But this place, really a haunting feeling to Hans Bruning once he realized what he was seeing. What exactly happened here, who lived here, and what was the source for the kilos of gold he saw melting down. But here's some more looks at the Túcume pyramids. This is Huaca 1, it is called. There's another look. But you can see how these were mistaken for just small hills about 130 years ago. But no clue that these once looked like this. But here is a look at that massive 2,300 plus foot long adobe structure. They call this the Huaca de Larga. And these weren't true pyramids. You can see here they were truncated pyramids. They had platforms at different levels and temples built on top of these. and they had ramp features, and the estimates here, the conservative ones, say this whole structure took, or this whole complex took at least a century to build. But once these places got excavated, there was intricate artwork found on inner walls of these mud brick pyramids. But I find this fascinating. This is what periods of heavy rainfall does to mud brick pyramids. Makes them really unrecognizable. So I have one question. One important question I would like to ask Mark Lehner or Zahi Hawass, or anybody who thinks the Sphinx was built 4,500 years ago. This is the Sphinx enclosure, and Dr. Robert Schoch, a respected geologist, has gone over how only periods of heavy rainfall could have carved these vertical erosion marks in the Sphinx enclosure, which was carved at the same time as the Sphinx. And if this was carved 4,500 years ago, during the 4th dynasty, and it endured heavy enough rainfall to carve these vertical erosion marks in this natural limestone, then how in the world is the Pyramid of Djoser, which was built in the 3rd dynasty before supposedly the Sphinx, built of the much softer mud bricks? How is this not a pile of unrecognizable rubble like this? I mean, they say Djoser's pyramid was built in the 3rd dynasty before the Sphinx, so this should have endured even more rainfall than this, the harder limestone. Well, it should look like this. Djoser's pyramid should look like this, but it doesn't, because the Sphinx was built much, much earlier, when rainfall was actually falling in the Sahara. Now here is a documentary I want to steer you to on the trail of Moche gold, and I found this to be an excellent documentary about the international artifacts trade and what came out of this area of Peru. But this headdress was found of this sea god, symbolized by the 8 tentacle arms, and this was priceless, and this went on the international art trafficking market. And how this was tracked down is what this documentary is all about, and it's about the international trade market and really dirty dealings and murder and other things. I found this fascinating. I will leave a link below. Here's a place near Lamina in the Lambayeque Valley where this golden octopus headdress was found, a very inconspicuous tomb, looted heavily, and some people call it the greatest looting of gold in this area since the Spanish were here about 500 years earlier. But this tomb was meant to blend right into the hills, kind of like the Valley of the Kings in Egypt near Thebes, present-day Luxor. Now, besides the 24 or so truncated pyramids around Túcume, which makes it one of the largest pyramid complex sites in the world, there was documented to be 250 pyramids all throughout the Lambayeque Valley. But one place that there was a remarkable discovery made was down here near the city of Sipan. And I'm going to show you that place right in here. But there are places to be discovered all through this place, and it's kind of challenging because they certainly don't look like pyramids as far as we know them today. They are ruined. But down here near Sipan, there are other ruins. There is a ruin over here, and then the main truncated pyramid complex is right here. And this is what they look like overhead on Google Earth. But here's what the Waka Rajada looks like, this ruined pyramid complex, mud bricks ruined by heavy rainfall. But what was discovered right nearby here was one of the greatest archaeological discoveries, really, of the 20th century coming from the Americas. Now remember, all archaeologists had to go on was some ceremonial scenes inside these excavated pyramids, sacrificial scenes and how much of this is just symbolism and how much of this came from real life. Well, they really didn't know. They didn't have a ruler's tomb. It was like Egyptian archaeologists without a pharaoh to go on, without any pharaoh being discovered. And then what was discovered around Sipan about 30 years ago, it really answered a lot of questions. Now this is worldarchaeology.com, and I will leave the link below, but this is the tombs of the Lord of Sipán. In 1987, some of the world's richest and most extraordinary tombs were found on the north coast of Peru. They were left by the people of the Moche culture, who preceded the Inca by some 1,000 years. To this day, the site continues to yield great wonders. The editor, Nadia Durrani, went to Peru to discover the latest. This is not the deepest, darkest Peru. Rather, we are in the Lambayeque Valley, the white-hot desert coastal zone of northern Peru, set between the Andes and the Pacific. The little-told story of their discovery of the Lords of Sipán, which rivals that of Carter and Carboneans in Egypt, began on the night of the 25th of February, 1987. And this article just goes over the discovery of what they found near these pyramids that I showed you on Google Earth. But this is what looters had missed and what was finally discovered here. But this is how he was buried, and that article goes into what is all entailed here. And I'm just going to read a little more of that article. It says, unsurprisingly, the archaeologists' first major discovery came soon. Adjacent to a looter's hole, they found an enormous cache of 1,137 ceramic moche pots. Then beneath these, they found the skeleton of a man in a seated position. This was odd, since the moche dead tend to be laid on their backs. But stranger still, his feet had been removed. Why? Digging deeper, they would find the answer. A tomb about 5 meters by 5 meters, still sealed, and in an unplundered context, carbon dated to about 250 AD. The man's feet had likely been severed so that he could never leave his post, guarding what lay within. For in the center of the tomb was a wooden sarcophagus, the first of its type to be reported in the Americas, and within the wooden box, Alvanchero discovered in opulent treasures a royal regalia adorning a poorly preserved skeleton of a man aged 35 to 45 years old and around 1.63 meters tall, and that is about 5 feet 4 inches tall. And this is what they discovered in 1987. And this was a very remarkable discovery coming from Peru. It says a man's costume included an enormous crescent headdress made of beaten gold, about 0.6 meters across, a gold face mask, and 3 exquisite sets of gold ear spools, masterly inlaid with turquoise. 2 necklaces hung around his neck, each bearing 10 preternatural thrice-sized peanuts, whatever the heck that means, 10 in gold and 10 in silver. It says on his body he wore a pure gold warrior's backflap shield weighing almost 1 kilogram, pectoral shields made of shell, bone, and stone, feather ornaments and banners of gilded metal, each with central figure with outstretched arms begging attendance. He was covered with several blankets adorned with ornate gilded copper platelets. In his right hand he carried a golden scepter-like object in the form of an inverted pyramid. On his feet were copper sandals. His tomb contained a range of either ceremonial utensils, including a rattled hammer from sheet gold and hafted with a solid copper blade, gold bells showing a deity severing human heads, 3 other headdresses, hundreds of beads, and tropical spongulous seashells. His tomb contained a total of 451 ceremonial utensils and offerings in gold, silver, copper, textile, and feather intended to accompany or protect him in the afterlife. The feathers, or maybe to send his soul to the eternal afterlife in the heavens. Now here's what they found in 1987 and other artifacts found nearby left from the Moche culture are fascinating and I imagine extremely valuable. Here are just a few of them. That looks like it's made out of turquoise and gold. but that is a deer with the horns on it, I believe, some sort of deer. Here is one. What is this? Well, this is a spider. You can see the legs coming off, but the body of the spider is in the form of a human head. But here you can see the spider legs, the spider here. I find that fascinating. And kind of the web here made out of gold. Now the Lord of Sipán also had buried with him a few women, many artifacts, and a dog. But it was clear to archaeologists when they came across the tomb, and especially when they found this crest, and that was displayed in all the scenes where the people were getting sacrificed. So they knew the Lord was integral in that sacrificial scene. It wasn't just symbolic that they were seeing on the pottery and on the temple walls. This was an actual ceremony that took place, and the Lord, or the high priest, or the king, this guy was integral in that ceremony. Here are other artifacts from the Moche culture. Pretty beautifully made. And just there has been digging for artifacts, I would imagine, going back centuries in this area, because this place was rich with different artifacts. Here is one of one of those lords from the Moche culture made out of gold. Here is an artist rendition of what they think this Lord of Sipán looked like in real life. In the scene, a ceremonial scene here taking place near these truncated pyramids that were used for ceremonies. Here's some corn made out of gold. Some very cool artifacts. Here is their main deity, their main god displayed inside one of the pyramids on one of the ceilings. And here is a necklace or something that will be placed over the chest. Stones inlaid, and it looks like the face of the god in here. Menacing with teeth. Here is the necklace made out of 10 peanuts of gold and 10 peanuts of silver. Now here is an article from the Daily Mail from a couple years ago. Once again, I will leave plenty of links below. But it says, the skull of one of the most famous archaeological finds of the 20th century has been reconstructed using 3D imaging. Brazilian scientists have revealed what the Lord of Sipán, the royal ruler of the mysterious Moche civilization, would have looked like if he would have been alive today. The 2,000-year-old Moche mummy was first discovered in 1987, and at the time was considered one of the 10 most important discoveries of the 20th century. And it says his male was unveiled today in Lima, Peru. And this article is from a couple years ago. And here is what the reconstruction looks like. It says, pictured is the 3D virtual facial reconstruction showing the skull, how it was found on the left, and the skull reassembled in the center, and the digital reconstruction of the face on the right. It says the reason for the collapse of the Moche culture are unknown, but experts have suggested prolonged drought, earthquakes, or extreme flooding from El Nino phenomenon have been to blame. Some experts suggest a civil war may have been the cause of their downfall, but it seems that there were some serious natural disasters in this area. And here is another website I will leave below, the Elixir of Knowledge, but it goes over the discovery of the Lord of Sipán. And here are some artifacts, some erotic artifacts, some sacrificial artifacts. But this is entitled History Mystery, Sipán, City of the Lords of Gold and Sacrifice. And towards the end of the Moche culture, it really became all about sacrifice. Now here is a model at Túcume, and these large structures were really built for the gods and ceremonies that really were to appease the gods. But here on this large structure, this is where human sacrifices were made. And there was a ramp leading up to a little area up here where the main priest or the god did the sacrificing amongst his close associates. And when bad weather struck, like El Nino, it wasn't Mother Nature that was really harming these people with the bad weather. They looked at it as the gods were sending the bad weather. But at the end of the Moche civilization, it seems there were many sacrifices almost daily because things got so bad. And these pyramids ended up, the tops, the temples on the tops got burned so badly that the stone almost melted. They destroyed these because they were no good to them, because they thought the gods were angry with them. So the structures that were built for the gods were destroyed at the end of the Moche civilization, and they moved on elsewhere. Now, do I have questions on the dating? Yes, I do. Here is an article from Ancient Origins, 4,000-year-old temple and tombs unearthed in Peru. And this is located in the Lambayeque Valley. So that is twice as old as the Moche culture, so big time questions. Now, just begin to wrap it up. Moche religion, it says, Moche religion and art were initially influenced by the earlier Chavan culture between 900 and 200 BC, and in the final stages by the Chimu culture. Knowledge of the Moche pantheon is sketchy, but we do know of Alpayak, the creator, or sky god, or his son, and Si, the moon goddess. Alpayak, typically depicted in the Moche art with ferocious fangs, a jaguar headdress, and snake earrings, was considered to dwell in the high mountains. But it says Si, the moon goddess, was considered the supreme deity, as it was this goddess that controlled the seasons and the storms. It says she was considered even more powerful than the sun because Si could be seen both at night and during the day. It says another deity who frequently appears in Moche art is a half-man, half-jaguar decapitator god, so called because he is often representing holding a vicious-looking sacrificial knife, or a túcume, in one hand, and the severed head of a sacrificial victim in the other. The god may also be depicted as a giant spider figure ready to suck the lifeblood from his victims. That such scenes mirror real-life events is supported by archaeological finds, such as those at the foot of the Huaca de Luna, where the skeletons of 40 men under 30 years of age show evidence that they were mutilated and thrown from the top of the pyramid. And that took place at that pyramid structure right at the base of the mountain. It says the bones of these skeletons display cut marks, limbs were ripped out of their sockets, and jawbones are missing from severed skulls. Interestingly, the bodies lie above soft ground caused by heavy El Nino rains, which suggests the sacrifices may have been offered to the Moche gods in order to alleviate this environmental disaster. Now, Thor Heyerdahl is a person who did research here. I will leave some links below, but this place is called Purgatorio by the locals, as in purgatory. This place is cursed, and I think there's a lot of questions that still need to be answered. How old really is this place? But I invite you to explore the whole Lambayeque Valley. There are a whole bunch of ruined pyramids. There are strange lines like these right here. There are some small overgrown pyramid sites here. Now here is a site just north of Túcume, and this is a big deteriorated mound. And let's just measure it here. This is about 1,400 feet long. But why do I think this is possibly a deteriorated structure? Well, if we look back on some historical imagery, you can clearly see features in here in the top of this, and they built temples on top of their truncated pyramids. This would make this about a 4 football field long massive structure that really has no name or title. Probably one of the largest unnamed structures like that in the world. And here is a good sized one right here. You can tell some of these temples on top are still visible clearly. That is huge. And here is another one. You get the idea. Not the easiest to locate, but they are everywhere in the Lambayeque Valley. That is some of the history of the Moche culture, Túcume, the Lord of Sipán. If you like looking around on Google Earth, check out the Lambayeque Valley in Peru. There are hundreds of pyramids, supposedly, that are now really deteriorated. You can still find them. This is not well known. That's why I'm talking about it. Hope you thought that was cool, and you all have a very nice day.